Welcome back. You're with us on Money, Money, Money. And this week we are focusing on retirement and asking the question that if you have extra cash, should you be parking it in the EPF or in the NPS? So now let's start by understanding the structure of the national pension system. Just help us identify this, Preeti, because we all remember, but it's good to jog memory. There is a tier 1 account in NPS, there's a tier 2 account. You can invest in a mix of, I think, equities, government securities. But how does it all work and how many shifts are allowed? So just go over the architecture for us once again.
Yes, sure. So NPS is a very open architecture. It is, again, going back to the basics, it's a defined contribution scheme, but it is not tied to an employer. It is completely portable. It is completely flexible. And what it does is it gives attractive tax concessions to employees on specific contributions. It gives certain attractive tax concessions to the employer also for contributing along with the employee. It has flexibility in terms of 3 options. Basically, both employer and employee can contribute. And I'm talking right now about the corporate NPS program. Both employer and employee can contribute equally. Only one of them can contribute, or they can also contribute unequally. So that is a kind of structure it has as far as contribution is concerned. The entry age is anywhere between 80 to 70 years. And what it also says is you can actually commence the benefit from age 60. It can be deferred to 70. And there are certain conditions on the benefit payments because they're saying that a minimum 40% has to be taken as an annuity and a maximum 60% of it can be actually taken as commuted value. The entire amount can actually be taken as annuity also. And you have certain annuity service providers who will ensure that the annuity payout is very smooth. It really is a proof of the pudding. There are certain exit criteria. You can normally exit at the age of 60. And the premature is also allowed with an 80% annuity purchase and a 20% lump sum. There's a partial withdrawal also allowed after 3 years. So it's fairly flexible in that sense. And on an investment mode, you actually have an active choice. So you can actively look at the asset classes and the proportions in the asset classes which you actually invest in. If you don't want to do anything, you have the auto choice. And as I said, there are attractive tax rebates for the employee contribution as well as the employer contribution. Another significant thing is you have a DC superannuation scheme. Very recently, it was allowed to actually pot that money, wind up your participation in DC superannuation, actually pot that money into NPS so that it helps you channelize all your retirement savings through a single vehicle and easier for you to manage in that sense. So this is just about a sum of the kind of facilities or benefits that are available under the NPS program. Okay. And it's shown very good returns also.
So just to sum it up, I mean, you have the tier 1 account, the tier 2 account. Tier 1 is, of course, the main primary account. And then as Preeti mentioned, there are several options. You can go for the auto choice, wherein depending on your age, your equity allocation will keep changing. It'll keep gradually coming down as you grow older. Or if you think you're savvy enough to do your own mix, then that is something that's offered by the NPS. But now, Harsh, let's talk about first the flexibility of it, because at no point in time, even if you stay in that scheme till 60 years of age, will you get full access to your money. At best, you get 60%. With the balance 40, you still have to buy annuity, and that comes as a monthly regular income. If there is a premature withdrawal, then there are more restrictions that you'll have to buy a higher portion of annuities, etc. So from that standpoint, does it make sense to you?
Well, Surbhi, my take on NPS has particularly been that this is a product essentially for people who are not confident or who are not from the, who are not financially savvy. This I'm talking about if you're planning as a regular citizen of the country, opening up an NPS account purely from an investment point of view to fund your retirement. In case you're doing it for tax advantages, etc., it's a different equation altogether. So my personal take is that because there are so many restrictions in accessing your capital, at age 60, you can at best get 60% of the accumulated corpus. 40%, as you said, has to be converted into an annuity. Now, annuity rates will be determined at that point in time by the annuity provider, which are essentially the life insurance company. Now, if I have to lock in my money and decide at that point in time what is the annuity I'm going to get, and if I was financially savvy, I'd rather have the fund to myself and use another mechanism to fund my retirement. I could use higher equity allocations even post retirement. It's a myth that you cannot be invested in the equities post retirement. You could have lower allocations. I could do an SWP, a systematic withdrawal plan. I could buy a property, put it on rent. Now, there could be several options to get regular income. So if you're financially savvy, you understand and can manage money, I think you're better off, not being into a scheme which has a lock-in or restriction in withdrawal. However, having said that, there is a large portion of the population who are not from financial backgrounds. They could be engineers, doctors, they could be different professions. They're very good in their own fields. But if you're not confident about managing money on your own, then NPS, of course, is one of the most efficient and cost-effective way to save for retirement.
Just a second, returns is also really important. Preeti, comment on this, or maybe Harsh, if you want to quickly comment, because you only have 2-3 minutes left. It's very important to look at cost and expected returns from any investment vehicle, right? And Preeti, you were telling me before the show that the cost element is much, much lower in the NPS. Is that right? How much lower? But then what about return? I mean, I don't want to feel shortchanged at the end of a long waiting period, realizing that the fund manager didn't manage my money well.
Yes, that's true, Surabhi. So the cost element, if you see this, I would think that this is perhaps the cheapest program of this kind in the whole world, because your cost could be a little bit high when actually the assets under management are lower, because you're talking about the lower income bracket. But for the higher income bracket, they could be as low as a 0.2%. And compare that to any other instruments. You talk of mutual funds, etc. So when Harsh is saying that this is for the masses, I would completely agree that this is actually a good way of starting to build something clearly. And then depending upon your investable surpluses, you can actually look at other things. And in terms of returns, if you look at the kind of returns we're talking about, a 5-year average for the equities had been about upwards of 8+. And for corporate bonds, it has been about upwards of 10+. And for government bonds, it's been upwards of 11+. And that is a significant thing that we're talking about. And you're also seeing that NPS is now also allowing investment in alternative assets up to 5%. So really, it is actually trying to compete in the market with some of the other financial instruments for retirement plan.
Which is where we investors end up being confused. And now we're down to the most important question of this conversation, this entire show. And this is a simple one. So Harsh, I'm throwing it right back at you. For a working professional who's savvy but busy, doesn't have the time, suddenly feels that they've got an increment or they've got some extra cash in hand, there's already an EPF investment happening because that's mandatory in most companies. Then where should that extra cash go? Should it go to the NPS? Should it plow back to the voluntary provident fund? How do you cut it up?
It should be up to 2.5 lakhs per annum. You most certainly should use the EPF, wherein if your employer contribution in that context, your mandatory contribution is say 1.5 lakhs, then make sure that you go for additional voluntary provident fund contribution of about 8,000 per month. So that makes it 2.5 lakhs. So up to 2.5 lakhs, no questions asked. The tax-free return on an EPF is the most superior form of debt allocation. And anything over and above that, if I remove the restrictions that an NPS puts in, NPS is a good product minus the restrictions. And if you don't like the restrictions, like I don't like that restriction, if I were to invest, I don't have an NPS account and nor do I intend to open one. I would look at a more flexible wealth creation option, such as a long-term equity allocation, where I can manage my equity allocations as well. I can choose the schemes. I can do all that bit. So for financially savvy, you can look at mutual funds or any other investment product to accumulate that corpus for retirement. Post-retirement, use it the way you want to. You could buy an annuity post-retirement.
Absolutely. It gives you more control. I totally get that point.